Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on whichever part of the world you are in right now. We all have something common in us. Either we want to go to a target school, or we have already reached there, like our panelists. And before we jump on to introduction about our panelists, here's a bit of task for our panelists. While you introduce, why don't you tell us one thing that you will miss the maximum when you graduate from your school? I would like to start with Sweta.
Sure. Happy to be here and lovely to meet you from every part of the world that you're joining us. My name is Sveta and I'm currently attending IESE. I'll be graduating in 2022, doing my summer internship now. My first week finished, well, just now. And the thing that I will miss the most after finishing would be definitely the people that I've met along in my journey. And I'm yet to meet as well in my second year.
Perfect. We have Meghna from Duke Fuqua. Why don't you go next, Meghna?
Hey everyone, Meghna this side. I'm originally from Orissa, India, and came to the US 9 months ago. So pretty much enjoying Durham, North Carolina. So anyone who's like excited to come to Fuqua, it's definitely a place where you'll meet a lot of people like living around you. So I'm really enjoying that. That's something I'm gonna miss the most, having all my classmates live right beside me and just go up with them whenever I would want to. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I'm going to graduate in 2022 as everyone else here, and excited to be here and answer any questions that I can.
Perfect. Thank you, Meghna. Inge from Wharton, why don't you go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Inga Chen, and I am a Wharton student as a part of the class of 2022. Prior to Wharton, I was in consulting, and this summer I'm doing an internship in tech. Really excited to be here with all of the lovely panelists here as well, and hoping to answer as many questions as possible for you guys. But in terms of something that I'll miss after leaving business school is probably the time that I have for self-reflection and being able to think really critically about what I want in terms of my career going forward, as well as all the resources at school, particularly Wharton, that sort of help guide me in that direction. So I think it's really a great time to explore and sort of figure out the things that are best for you.
All right, lovely, Inge. Thank you so much. Rizwana, why don't we hear from you next?
Hi everyone, I'm Rizwana. I'm from India. So before business school, I did my education in economics and I was in investment banking and then moved to tech. And when I came to business school over the summer, I interned at Acumen in impact investing. I've actually just graduated. I graduated in May, and I'm going to be joining McKinsey digital practice in the New York office. And something that I really miss about business school is just the range of exposure that I had, class in valuation and another class in human rights press and another in marketing and sustainability. So, and I loved how intellectually stimulating all of that was, and I could expose myself to different kinds of things in New York. So I'll definitely miss that after business school.
All right. Now, last but not least, David, why don't you go next?
Yes, hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here today, and also, I just want to say huge congrats to Rizwana for finishing your program. That's really awesome, and best of luck out there. My name is David. I am a first year. No, wait, hold on. I'm now a second year MBA student at the A. Gary Anderson Graduate School of Management at UC Riverside in California. I did my undergrad at UCR as well in business, so I've had the pleasure of being here for about the last 5 years or so, what I like to consider the best 5 years of my life, hands down. And if we're going to be talking about, the thing that I'll miss the most, one of the very, very unique things about UCR is the innate sense of community with your peers, and particularly with your cohort that we have at our MBA program here at UCR. You really get a sense that everybody is, seeking to support you within your success. There's no semblance of I'm competing against you for some, scarce resource. Everybody is looking out to support one another and lift each other up. And I think that's what's helped me grow so much over the last 5 years, and of course over this past year as well. So I'm super excited to see what's going to be happening over the next year as we return to campus in the fall. So again, very happy to be here. Looking forward to answering all of your questions and hopefully giving some people this really good perspective on what it might look like if you pursued your MBA.
Thank you so much, David. So excited to meet all of you. And if for the people who belong to the bucket of somebody who wants to go to the target school, one thing that I'm sure everybody would be curious about is to know what really happens in an MBA, or what really happens in the life of a student who's pursuing an MBA. And that's the first question that I have for all of you. Tell us about your experience during the MBA, and specifically concentrating upon a typical busy day.
I can start first, if that's okay with everyone. So I think that we were super lucky at the IESE that they were really good in making sure that we attend classes physically. So my day would start early in the morning, and I'll have to fill in my health form and go to school and meet all of my classmates, where we have the sections are of around 50 people, or at least that this year they were that way, so that we can comply with the health and safety of the government, Spanish government. And then we would start classes at 8:15, and we'll have 3 classes on different topics, which will finish around 12:30. And after that, most of us would just go and grab lunch. We have a lovely terrace in which we can enjoy the sun as well. So that's also a time where you can connect with a lot of people. And afterwards is really about, especially at the beginning, if you're looking for a particular career in like consulting or IB, then you need to start preparing for the interviews, or looking at connecting with people, networking with people, and making sure that you're doing all of the mock interviews. Of course, on the side, you need to manage your workload, which is for university for the next day. So you have to read all of the cases for the next day for all the other 3 classes. And usually my team and I would have a meeting at 6 p.m. Where we would discuss for 1 hour the classes, and we'll just share what our perspective is, and really a time for us also to bond, which was quite good, and to learn from each other. And then in the evening, if you haven't done all of the work, then you carry on, or maybe you could also go for dinner, depending on what the day looks like. But I would say, especially at the very beginning, it's quite demanding, but in a good way, and there is a lot to learn, and I'm sure that kind of was the experience for everyone. But the best part of it was that we were being able to physically be in class.
That's so.
I can go next.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so like just to add on to that, so similarly at Fuqua, we kind of had like a hybrid kind of model, which means like if you had 4 classes in your term, 2 of them would be in person and 2 would be completely virtual, just to make sure like we have a class and we have due contact students as well coming there. So typical day, like basically we have testing twice or thrice a week. So if it is on a Tuesday or a Thursday, you probably have to test, first get your COVID test done and then get into the classes. You have your ID based on the access based on whether you complete the test or not. So that's the first thing. And then based on your section, when you have your core classes, for me, there was no 9 a.m. classes. I'm super lucky, thankfully. But at the same time, I always had an ending, like 5 p.m. ending classes, which was not that great on a Friday. But definitely, depending on when your classes are, I would go to school, there's like based on your timing, with your section mates, you have a lot of time to spend with them, especially during your core classes. So right after classes, we just go to Fox Center, which is our cafeteria, where we kind of hang out for some time, just talk about in general what we want to do. Then you meet up with your C lead, which is like the first team assignment that's done for all of you. You have a team of 5 or 6, mostly section mates whom you're going to be working throughout the 2 years for anything, like any sort of assignment. So you kind of do those meetings, work for the next assignment for whatever class is there. And then if you're also involved in clubs, so I was involved in clubs in the first year. I was the cabinet member. So then you'd have those meetings probably twice or thrice a week with the cabinet and with the president, and kind of work it on that. And then if you're in the recruiting season, especially if you're recruiting for consulting, which I did, so you have probably like a networking session schedule or coffee chat schedule with like for 30 minutes or 1 hour, depending on how many you have, or company presentations in the evening. So yeah, typically a very hectic day would contain all of this. But then there is always a day where it's much more chill than all of when you don't have classes. So this term, the last term was like elective classes. So the way I select electives was no classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which was awesome. So I kind of had like just 2 days of 3 classes a day. So I really enjoyed that.
I see. And Meghna, is it true that you had both virtual and physical classes? That's what you mentioned in the beginning, right? So you had 2 virtual
Yeah.
classes and 2 physical classes. Was that how it is?
Every term. Yeah. So we have like
all right.
5 terms in the first year. So every term, which is a 6 period, we have like 4 classes, and out of the 4, 2 would be completely virtual and 2 would be in person. So it's all dependent on professors, how they want to do it, or if they are in the high risk zone, they would want to do it virtually completely. But next year, the second year is completely in person. So we've already gotten news. Everybody has been vaccinated at Duke and Fuqua. So it's going to be completely in person. We are like kind of scared now. How do we do everything in person now? But it's going to be fun. It's going to be a different experience.
I see. Great to know. Inga, we would want to know your experience as well.
Sure. I'm also seeing a lot of questions in the chat, so hopefully I can start to answer a little bit of them as well. But in terms of a regular busy day for me, just thinking back to when I was recruiting in January and February, I still did attend my classes, but this semester I did take a lighter load. So that way I would be able to focus a little bit more of my energy towards recruiting. So a lot of that had to do with the information sessions, as Meghna mentioned before, and then, meeting with my advice and support network. So as I was recruiting, I did use some of the school resources in which we have specific people who are dedicated to our job search and helping us through that job search, whether it's interview prep or resume reviews, or, if I was a little bit nervous about some of the ways my interviews were going, I could ask them for advice and ways that I would be able to improve the interview outcomes for myself. So whether it's having a meeting with them or perhaps tapping into some of the student network as well as the alumni network, that was also something that I was doing as well on a busy day. Just talking to people and understanding their experience in the industry, or also, their experience in the interview process. I always thought that was really helpful. And overall, the Wharton network has been very helpful. As you know, we have larger classes. Mine personally is around 920 students. So across the world, we have a very vast network of alumni. So there's always someone who's willing to chat with you about, an area of interest for you, whether it's something they did before Wharton or something that they're doing currently. So beyond that, again, also clubs as well. So at Wharton, we have a lot of different clubs ranging from professional interests or personal interests as well. If you like wine or scotch and whiskey, we have those clubs. If you want to play tennis, there are people who are willing to do that. If you just, want professional help, whether it's for tech recruiting or PEVC recruiting, whatever the case may be, we have a club for that. And all of our clubs at Wharton are student run. So all the initiatives, all the conferences, all those things are put together by students. There's really no oversight from any official source. This is all something, if we want to do it, we are able to put it into action and make it work for our classmates. So I was involved in a couple organizations this year, so we'll definitely have meetings for those as well. And then if I can swing it, obviously doing some personal things like meeting up with friends for dinners, or, whether it's a virtual coffee chat in a COVID environment, just trying to fit some of those things as well, just to take care of my mental health as well, and make sure that all my friends are doing okay during a busy time too. So overall, definitely very busy here at Wharton, but really enjoying the experience and definitely making the most of it.
Wow, wonderful. Good to know. Rizwana, how is it for you?
So I actually had experience of a little bit of both, pre-pandemic and then during the pandemic. And because everyone has touched on what happened during the pandemic, and we are going back into an in-person section sort of after school reopens, so I'll touch mostly on that. So a typical busy day, primarily for an MBA one, it is the first semester when you are recruiting. And to give you a rough idea of how it would start is probably you'll wake up at like 6:30 in the morning. Sometimes you may have a corporate presentation by a company at 7 in the morning. Then you'll probably wake up earlier, 5 o'clock. And then, as for women, you have to have your full glam on because you have to do that and then reach school. If you don't have a morning 7 o'clock corporate presentation, then usually your classes will start by 9 o'clock. And once you're done with the class, then you'll probably have 3 to 4 coffee chats. Around lunchtime, you will have a corporate presentation. And after that, you'll again have a class. And again, you'll have corporate coffee chats, followed by another corporate presentation, either in school or in the office of the company, which could go on till like 11, 1, 2 in the night. Depends on the company, depends on the people that you're meeting in the company. So it's very, very hectic. It's literally like from the moment you wake up till that day, probably 1 in the night, it's just on. Your brand is on display 24/7. And because most of the people who come to Stern, we are recruiting for the New York office, so it's that much more competitive. So, for each company, you will do at least 20 to 30 coffee chats. So it's a lot of networking basically that goes on. Sometimes you'll go to their office, sometimes they'll come to campus, depends on the company. So that apart, your weekends are mostly where you'll do all your cases, your readings that you need to do, whatever homeworks you have to submit for the next week's assignment. Thursdays is when we have our beer blast, which is, that one evening where sort of everyone goes all out. So that's basically how it would be in your first semester as an MBA one. And that is probably the toughest and the most busy that any of us would be in any particular semester. It sort of gets better after that.
Lovely. David, how is it for you?
Well, it's so nice to hear. I would have to say that everybody's had at least some opportunity in some capacity or another to at least do a hybrid model. Unfortunately, trying to adhere to as many safety protocols as we can at UC Riverside, we have been virtual over the last year and a half almost at this point. And but one thing about UCR is that they have done a fantastic job of transitioning everything into a really, really solid remote format. It's one thing to learn over Zoom, but it's one thing to really it's like a whole nother thing to really get a sense that you are getting still a very quality education from, world-class educators who have received their degrees from the top universities, within the world and are producing, multiple pieces of their own research every year. One of the things that we always pride ourselves on is that we are a research school, and we do put out many different pieces of different research that really helps push the business world forward. So, classes in that sense, everything is over Zoom. Professors have done their work to make things as, supportive as possible for students. Many of the professors will opt for a asynchronous format. So they may do some pre-recorded lectures to be able to, make it a little bit more sustainable for students who do have work or other obligations, at the time when they would have class. And then we also have labs and also, virtual over Zoom live sessions where we actually will go over cases and, be able to meet with our cohort and actually do different, work studies that actually help us apply the knowledge which we're learning in our coursework. And so it's definitely been a really, really great opportunity to connect with so many people. One of the things is also great about our school is that we offer, classes at all times of the day, multiple sections. It'll be one from like let's say 11 to 2, then from 2 to 5, and then 6 to 9 to be able to accommodate those folks who do work. We are very proud that we have many folks who work at great companies. We have folks who work at Google, at Tesla, who go to our school. So it's definitely for them, it's a great way for to be able to balance these things. Personally, I prefer taking classes in the evening just because I find that it's really a lot easier for me to be able to focus on my other work during the day and then be able to have my class at night and kind of wrap up my day from there. One of the things that I am currently an ambassador for the School of Business. And so one of the great things about that is that I have this opportunity, to network and reach out to prospective students and be able to help folks on their journey to applying to their, dream schools and hopefully at UCR as well. At UCR, we also have many different opportunities outside of that to be involved. We have about, I believe, 562 different clubs, and many of them being business oriented, from the Accounting Society to the American Marketing Association, which I was once part of. We also have a financial group that has a portfolio, stock portfolio. So many different opportunities, for students to be able to apply themselves, not just within the classroom, but outside of the classroom, and meet folks who have similar interests, like-minded individuals. This is one of the things that really makes our school special, is that we have this really, really strong network of folks who have graduated from our school, and the alumni stay connected. They will come out and they will do speaker series. I mean, I cannot tell you how many speaker series I have attended, every week over the last 3 quarters, with alumni who are coming back to, share with the school and give back about their experiences working at, again, places like Google. We have one guy was a CFO of Visa. So many different, perspectives that they've gotten from their work experiences. And so it gives us this sense of, wow, there's so many great things ahead for us. And, being able to connect with these folks really, really enriches the academic experience. And of course, aside from that, we have plenty of, networking opportunities with students, with business professionals, with recruiters, also different activities put on by the Career Development Center, which focuses on being able to help you get connected to internship opportunities, work opportunities. So many. It's a very, very well-rounded program that I feel like, for me, every day my day looks different. I always have something else going on outside of just my classes, which is why I like to have them at the end of the day. So many different opportunities and so many different ways to be involved and really add different layers to your academic experience outside of just the classroom, and connecting with your professors and with your peers within your cohort.
Wow, I'm just super impressed by the manner the schools have adapted to the situation of pandemic and not letting down the experience of the school. Super amazing. And one other thing that I can figure out is that all of you have really hectic days. So are there any light days, and how does the a light day look like for you? Can you shed some light on that? David, you want to go first?
Yeah, why not? That's a great question. Thank you for that. That's for me, one of the things that I understood very early on during undergrad was that you need to take time for yourself, and you need to take time to recharge and to be able to sort of come back to yourself, because burnout is real. Burnout is very real, especially in very challenging and rigorous master's programs. If you don't take the time to kind of relax and take a moment for yourself, you can very quickly get burnt out. And so every weekend I try to find some time for myself. I like to sort of shut everything out, focus on myself, whether it's just watching TV, or I'll try to read up on different things that I find interesting. I personally am an aspiring songwriter, so I kind of play around with music production, video production. I love to create content. So for me, an off day is really kind of focusing more so on myself and being able to give time to those things that I don't get the chance to focus on during my busiest days, only because I don't want to lose that part of myself. I want to keep on growing that other side of myself, while of course pursuing my education. And spending time with friends, and obviously with my family. I live about 45 minutes away from my home. So being able to see my family is also a really big part of being able to kind of recharge and kind of step away from everything that I'm doing outside of that. So that's kind of what I do in my off days, really just focusing on myself, spending time with family and friends, loved ones, and just being able to recharge and come back ready to work again.
Wonderful, David. Lovely to see that you have the opportunity to recharge yourself. Anybody else who would like to share their light days?
Yeah, I'll add on to that. At Wharton specifically, we actually don't have classes on Fridays, and that's been amazing because you get that time to sort of, as David mentioned, recharge or catch up on some schoolwork or get ahead on schoolwork, meet people, reach out to the alumni, whatever you need to do to make the business school experience what you want it to be. I really appreciate that flexibility on Fridays, so that way anything that you didn't really feel like you got a chance to do during the week, you have that chance to do it on Fridays, and then of course on the weekends being able to do that too. But I just appreciate that Wharton has sort of understood the importance of giving us that time to sort of recharge and make sure that we're not overwhelmed by academics, and that we're also able to touch the other aspects of the business school experience that we really want to take advantage of.
I'll add to Inga's point here. I think it's the same with Stern as well. We do not have classes on Friday. And Friday is basic for everything else that you need to do, whether it's your cases or you need to work for clubs, etc. As I said, Thursday evening is when the entire community gets together for beer blast. But for me personally, a lot of alumni that you want to network are also actually free on weekends. So that is when you're speaking to them. But Saturday evening was when I used to keep myself completely free. And that was my evening to just vegetate and, look at Netflix and do nothing else. Because I agree with David, you need that time to recoup because the week is just so hectic. But also as an MBA first semester, it's very difficult to get that downtime, and you need to be very good with your time during the week so you can carve out that time for yourself. Things definitely get better second semester onwards, but as a first sem MBA it's not that easy to have any downtime, honestly.
And just add on, I can't agree with any more than any of the other three panelists, and it's very good to hear that you have a Friday off. For us, this is not the case, and indeed, it depends on, so for me, particularly the first semester, as Rizvana said, it's quite busy, but depends really much on what is it that you're recruiting for. Other than that, if that was out of the picture, or then you go into your second and third term, being at IESE specifically for me has given me the opportunity also to explore a lot the Spanish culture and to visit a lot of cities. The school is positioned in Barcelona, so it means that you have the sea, you have the mountain, and you can do so many things around the city, and to really get out of that bubble and still be with your friends from the MBA, but just explore something different. And also it's a time where you can connect more with the clubs that we have, which are actually you could do it with the professional ones, but also with the non-professional. Like Inge mentioned, we also have like a wine club and a whiskey club, and so you can connect with people that are based on their interests and really expand your network. But it's very much driven as to what you want to do, or you can just go down to the beach and play volley, and it's just good to rewind from everything that you have been doing during the week, and it can be quite demanding. So it's good to unwind for sure.
Yeah, and just lastly, just to add on to that, because Fuqua has a completely different approach to this. We have a Wednesday off instead of Friday off. And the main reason they do that is so that the class does not, at least that's what they say, that the class does not like go out during the long weekends or something. So, and I think that has worked because every weekend, Fuqua being the kind of team Fuqua spirit that we have, like some section comes up with some sort of initially socially distanced kind of events where we used to go to Falls Lake or like to the mountains or to the beach. And we used to do a lot of those section initiated events at the beginning. And now with lower number of restrictions that are these days, the Fuqua days, like a Tuesday night or a Friday night, a lot of places which are specific to Fuqua students are open now. So we do all of that to unwind. So that's something very, very specific to Fuqua, very specific to Durham. And that's the experience that everyone wants to look for. And you're just like so closely knit with your classmates because of this. So like the first 6 months was hard because of everything being online and everything being like socially distanced, not too many in-person events. But in the last 3 months, I think the amount of connections we've made because of just like things relaxing a bit, everybody getting vaccinated, it's been great. And I'm looking forward to second year being much more interactive, much more in person. So yeah, that's a bit about Fuqua.
Oh, wow. One thing that I can understand from all of your schedules is that MBA really teaches you good time management for sure, right? And since last year we had the situation of pandemic, the schools managed to do all sort of things to not spoil the experience of MBA. How was it connecting outside the class? Were you able to? I mean, because most of you said like in the beginning that one thing that you're going to miss is the community or the people that you met at the school. So how was that experience? Were you able to connect with people outside the class as well?
If I can take this one, I think for us it was quite, again, easy because we were all physically in class, so we can meet there, but also outside of class, you could do certain activities as long as they are within the limitations of what the government has put in place. But the clubs that we had from school that are professional, especially when it came to recruiting season, they were very engaging, even being it online. So that was definitely a way that we were communicating with like-minded people, where you know that you then want to do mocks or just you want to connect with. But I would say most of it was physically, which was really good, because the connection with people that you build, I personally think is a lot stronger, and you can really have a sense for the person on the other side.
All right. How was it for others? Does anybody want to chime in on that?
I'll add a point there. So for Stern, initially, the moment the pandemic hit, of course, we went fully online. And then gradually over the next semester, we started having some classes in person, which was socially distanced. So we would have like, say, 18 to 20 people in person. And for the same class, what started happening was you would have online sections and offline sections. So that sort of helped in sort of getting to meet people. The school also took the responsibility to try and connect more people. So what we initially, when you apply to Stern, you have something called the Pick 6, where you choose the 6 pictures that tell your story. So we started something called a Pick 3, where you choose 3 areas of interest. And then based on that, we were mapped to people with whom we shared common interests, so that we could have, chats with them, get together, know them. I think the community really rallied behind also, and I think people supported us much more because we were recruiting through the pandemic. And then the student gov, actually, they did something very nice. So we were divided into cohorts of small sections of, say, 5, 6. And we had multiple activities. So say, a group of 5 was sent to the Met, a group of 5 was, taken for an event at the MoMA, a group of 5 I went to the zoo. And I remember the day I went to the zoo after a year of being, in an apartment. It was the first time I saw trees and waterfalls, and I started crying because I forgot what nature had looked like. So they did multiple things to sort of help us through all of that. And now that all of us are vaccinated, there's many more things happening around the city. So yeah, I think the school definitely stepped up within the parameters of what they could.
All right. And here's a question from audience. This is the question I guess I hear a lot. Like, have you stuck to your post-MBA goals that you had before starting the school? So something that you mentioned in your essays, is it really that you're pursuing after your MBA, or has the goal changed now?
I'll take that one. So in my essay to Stern, I actually wrote that because I was really inspired by Jacqueline Novogratz, when I first heard her TED Talk. And when I knew that I wanted to try out impact investing, Acumen was the firm I wanted to go to. And that's exactly the firm where I interned over the summer. So I definitely stuck to that goal. But over time, I realized, because I had been in tech and I knew that technology is what interests me the most. And I felt like in impact investing, there is a less of emphasis on tech for creating change in the world. And given the kind of personality that I have, I realized that I'm someone who wants to be in tech, but I can't be attached to one product forever, because that's how my background has been. I've launched multiple products over a period of time. And so I realized that digital consulting was the right path for me, having spoken to a lot of people, having explored different career options. So yes, I did stick to what I said I wanted to do, then I did it, and then I realized that there is probably another aspect that I enjoy more, and then I pivoted from there.
For my side, I stuck to what I wrote in my CV. I wanted to go into consulting, and now I'm doing my internship. Hopefully, I will go back for full time. But I know of a lot of people. You have both sides. So one that they stick to what they've written, and some people that completely go in a different direction. And that's the beauty, I guess, from the MBA experience, the support of the career center in each of every of the schools that we're representing here. and really the time for you to reflect as to what do you want, and on the way you meet people and you get great opportunities. So it's not a problem if you don't do whatever you have written in your essay, as long as whatever you have written makes sense at the time and it's coherent and it's clear to the admission office, then that's great. And if you find something else on the journey, it's also great. So yeah, I think it's up to you really to create your own future.
All right. Now coming on to the pandemic situation again, I see there are so many demerits people discuss about going to a B school during the pandemic time. Do you guys have any positive things that really happened because of the pandemic? Any benefits of going to the school during the pandemic? Do you see any benefits?
I can jump in, like, because when I got the admit, I did not know the pandemic was going to hit. But at the same time, we had the decision point where all schools were very open to giving a referral if you wanted it. But at that point, I think it's a mix of, like, where you are at what point of your career, and, like, do you feel this is the right time to do it or not? For me, it was mostly like I was in consulting. I'm going back to consulting, and I was mostly going as a career enhancer. At the same time, given the pandemic, how is it gonna change my role in my current company? I was gonna be doing the same thing at the same position for another year and then take the deferral for that year and then again do more years of MBA? I wasn't prepared for that. Versus, like, I was kind of positive that we would figure out something and maybe my second year would be a little more like in person and still have that MBA experience. But I guess for me, it was more about where I was at what stage in my career, and I really wanted to go back and enhance my career, do some sort of work on some of my finance skills and all of that, and also build the network, which I don't think I have literally missed out on that, even though some things were virtual. And I would say from my personal experience, some of the virtual things like doing your interviews virtually or doing the coffee chats virtually was really efficient for me as a person, instead of me like just trying to fly down for an interview or like going to another place for a coffee chat. So that really helped from my perspective. I don't know what others are thinking, but for me, it really worked out, and I'm happy about coming during the pandemic year. So yeah.
One thing that I would add that was beneficial in the pandemic was actually during classes. So, a lot of the learning is always through your classmates as well, and some of the previous experiences that they've had professionally. So I really appreciated having the perspectives both of people speaking up and also those who are able to participate in the chat. We were able to get a lot more perspectives and ideas thrown around in a classroom when we had that chat option, which obviously in a real life in-person experience, you wouldn't necessarily have time for everyone to be able to chime in. So I think we were actually able to get a greater diversity of perspective that way, and also have more people share some of their knowledge, which was great.
I'm receiving some encouragement from the chat from Suraj, so I'll go ahead and share some perspective as well. Thank you, Suraj, for the encouragement. Honestly, I think that Meghna made a great point that it all really depended upon where you were at that point in your life. When I began to apply, Meghna said, I had no idea that the pandemic was going to happen. So, by the time that things kind of really did hit, I felt like I was already a little bit in too deep to back out at that point. And, I think for me, one of the things that I really wanted to do already from the beginning was to be able to sort of round out my education before, venturing into my, full-time career. So I think that especially for people who were hit hard by the pandemic, if they were already working, it kind of presented them this opportunity to go back to school and to actually have this chance, especially with the market, with both the job market and the economy basically tanking, going belly up. It gave people this opportunity to go back to school, invest in themselves, and be able to sort of be in this like a incubator environment where you can grow and get so many great resources and meet so many people who have different work experiences and have different life perspectives. I mean, within our cohort, at least, we have people from my age. I just turned 23 to people who are in their late 40s and early 50s. So there's so many different perspectives, and you kind of get this really, really broad understanding of the world and of course of the course content what you're learning. So I think it's really something to be said about going back to school in these times. I think it shouldn't be written off as like you fall back on this option to just do something. It really is a great investment into yourself and into your future, because for anybody who especially wanted to go back to school but had work, had family, had other obligations, I think it was a really, really great opportunity for them to be able to finally have that chance to go back and start at least. Now things are sort of opening up again, but I think it's really important to sort of evaluate it from all ends and see it in the long term, that you're basically being able to set yourself up for even more success once you complete that degree, because you'll either be able to promote within your current job or be more prepared once the market starts to improve and find better opportunities for yourself. So absolutely, but of course it all depends on the person really, and what your goals are and what you want to do with your career at that point.
I see. And I see one other benefit that I heard from somewhere was that some of the companies who were not ready to come to the school, who were not ready to travel to the school to recruit people, they started recruiting from the school since everything went virtual. So that's, I guess, another benefit that probably you would have experienced as well. On the similar lines, I have a question, which is, do you think it is better to enroll in your home country or to travel abroad or to go abroad to study for the people who will be joining this year? Any thoughts on that?
I think that it's a very personal choice, in my opinion, because you need to decide as to whether you need to choose the school more, I think, than the place. Yeah, there is a benefits, of course, to the place, but by place I mean the country, or whether it's next to your home or not. But if it is something that you aspire for the school, you like the people that are some alumni, or whether they have a good name on the street, and whether they have a particular perspective in which you want to move on, but being a tech, consulting, or entrepreneurship. So I think you really just need to choose the school. There is benefits to both being outside of your home country, because that gives you an exposure to something different, and it teaches you different skills to be more open-minded and flexible and appreciative of different cultures. And being home, but then gives you also the comfort and the security of being next to people and the environment that it's quite demanding experience at the beginning of an MBA. So that could be a good support to have when you're next to at home. I think it's very, very, in my perspective, very personal, and probably concentrate more on first defining what type of school do you want to join, and then maybe whether it's going to be in your home or outside.
All right. Okay, and we have one question from the audience. Probably David, you would be probably the best person to answer this question, which is, can you talk about managing academic workload while working through recruiting? If I'm not wrong, you mentioned something about that at UCR, you have people who work as well as come for the MBA. If that's the case, can you shed some light on this?
Yes, and I sort of got my first taste of that this quarter, because I was unemployed all the way up until March, when I was offered to be a TA, or a teaching assistant, for a undergraduate business course. And so I sort of got my first taste of trying to manage a part-time position with full-time courses. It definitely teaches you a lot in terms of even when you thought that your time management was nailed down and you had your schedule worked out, because especially, depending on the nature of your work, things may come up unexpectedly, and you may have to rearrange things within your schedule, and maybe even exclude certain things which you used to be a part of, or that you were previously involved in order to accommodate your academic workload as well as work. That's one of the things that I always do, is that every several weeks I will reevaluate everything that I'm involved in and I am committed to, and think about whether I can still continue within that organization or within that involvement opportunity, because I like to involve myself in a few things, but heavily. So if I start to kind of stretch myself a bit too thin, that's where I start to burn out. So I think it's really important for you to be able to sort of prioritize really being able to focus on academics, focus on your workload, and really be proactive about your scheduling, because things come up unexpectedly. And one of the best things that you can do is have a schedule that is so well fleshed out that you can bounce back at a moment's notice if something comes up unexpectedly, whether you are working within recruiting for the school. It's always really important to be able to be flexible with that, because there's some times when nobody else can step up except you, or you're one of the few people who they can count on. And so it's definitely very important to be able to assess your schedule at all times from various perspectives as to whether you can do this long term, whether you can do this at the current moment. So I think it's absolutely manageable. It just does take a lot more time and a lot more effort, a lot of trial and error. There's moments where you hiccup. I'm always very open about that. I think that it's important to let folks know that you make mistakes, you mess up here and there, but those are the best life lessons. Those are the golden nuggets that you learn from the most. So but definitely, absolutely, I think anybody who works full-time currently and would, for example, want to pursue a part-time MBA, it's absolutely doable. It's all about being able to schedule around your current responsibilities and being able to focus on those things that are your priorities within life, obviously within this case academics and work.
All right. And if I'm not wrong, most of you are moving into your second year now. So yeah, so how will things change for you in second year, and what are the goals for your second year?
I can start us off. So I came to business school with a couple of different career goals in mind and things that I want to test out. So this summer I did have the opportunity to work in tech, and it's something that I'm very excited about and something I've really enjoyed so far. But given the time that we have in business school, I also have an interest in venture capital as well. So I'd love to explore whether it's entrepreneurship or working at a VC fund part-time during the school year. I think that's something I'd love to explore. And, again, like your business school time is really up to you and what you want to get out of it. So, being able to explore different career paths is going to be a priority for me. And then beyond that, I think because I had the first year in the pandemic, I'm really looking forward to the social aspects. So I think for me, I'm going to be joining a lot more of the social clubs and things that are more personal interest rather than professional. And hoping to get involved with those sorts of things. So I'm able to connect with people with similar interests that way. So I'm really looking forward to those things next year.
Perfect.
And for me, my main goal is to learn Spanish. I will try my best. So let's see, because I didn't do it very well in the first year. But second year for us is with a lot of electives. So we create our own journey. And I have chosen quite interesting for myself courses. So I'm going to dedicate time to those. And also I will try to support as much as I can the first years on their consulting journey and give them the support that I was given by our consulting club and the Career Development Center as well. And be with as many people from my cohort as possible, meet the ones that I haven't met, and enjoy, because it's a good time now. Things that are opening. So before we go back to the real world with full time. So yeah.
Absolutely. And since you touched upon that the pandemic this year, the things will be different in terms of the way schools were organized in the pandemic year. So has your program announced any plans for the incoming students, and how is it going to change for the new batch?
Yeah, I can
As
talk
the
about
business-
Fuqua because
No, go ahead.
Sorry about it. Okay. Okay. So like I spoke before about fall plans. So I think this is more for the incoming batch. For the second year is because everybody's already in the US. It is going to be in person completely. But there is some flexibility for internationals coming in since Fuqua starts a bit early. We're starting July 29th. And because I know in India and some other countries still have visa issues and like they probably will be a bit late to come in. So Duke has allowed those people to be hybrid in the sense like can do online from their respective countries for some time, at least for the fall, and hopefully by mid-fall everybody is here, and then by then the fall 2 term would be completely in person. And that's how the plan is. And the plan is mainly to get everybody vaccinated before they get into classes in person. So people, if they can get vaccinated in their home country, is great. If not, Duke is taking the initiative to vaccinate everybody, just requesting everybody to come a bit earlier so that they can do the 21-day, whatever the Pfizer timeline. So that's the main, Fuqua has taken the stance on. So we are pretty excited. Like I am pretty excited to for second years to be, because I'm like involved in a lot of clubs. I'm excited to host a lot of first years with us. So really looking forward to that.
All right. Sweta, how are things changing at ESA? Is everything like things were already in person? Are more things changing for ESA this year since things are getting relaxed?
No, we're just still going to be, actually, no, the change from what have been communicated, but yet to be confirmed, because currently we have morning classes and afternoon classes. So a few of the, and I think that from next year, everyone again would be in person. It's just that everyone would be in the morning. So that would be, I think, the change. And then you can enjoy your afternoon or dedicate that time to study and to work on recruiting. And I think things are opening a lot more now in Spain, and they should carry on being like that. So everything will be fully open, hopefully, for everyone that is joining.
Wonderful, wonderful to know. All right, I'm going to take one last question, and this is an important one, I believe, for the people who are applying to B schools, which is, how can I leverage working with people across the globe in my applications? Your thoughts on this? Who wants to start? Maybe Sweta, maybe you can start on this, since if I know for sure, ESA gives a lot of emphasis on multicultural or diverse classroom.
Yeah.
So maybe
Indeed.
you can,
Sure. I think for me would be, as we've all mentioned, that in classes you definitely have the perspective of different people coming from different backgrounds, but also culturally. So it's quite good to see how people are thinking, and just to be aware of the different situations that you can encounter, being it at recruiting or just communicating with anyone, how to react and how to respect people's views and cultural differences as well. It's great also. Today I actually received a message from someone saying like, hey, a friend of mine is looking for an intern in a VC company in Spain. Or you have those different perspectives that everyone is bringing around the world, and it gives you that it opens doors for you, that if you want to potentially go in a particular country that you don't have a connection to, that might help you really to they could be your door to that place. And I think that's quite valuable. It's the best thing that you can gain from an MBA is, on one perspective, obviously the academics, but the second one is the connection as diverse as possible. And yes, it's definitely pretty good in that it has a very international background.
I see.
I hope that answers.
Yeah, that definitely answers the question. And is that the case in US schools as well? Do US schools also give importance to having diverse experience, or let's say multicultural experience? Maybe Inga, how about Wharton? How important is diverse experience for Wharton?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my classmates come from so many different places, whether it's geographically or from various functions or industries. So that diversity of perspective is really great. And Suraj, if you're able to highlight that in your application and and that ties with the story that you want to portray about yourself long-term and your career aspirations, you should definitely, talk about it. For me, I also had some international experience with one of my clients. So that was something that I spoke about on my resume. So there are definitely different ways for you to highlight it. In particular, one program that we do have here at Wharton is called we have a dual degree program with a different school within Penn. It's the Lauder program. And so for anyone who is interested in working internationally later on in life, this is actually a great program for you to explore. It is a dual degree where you get a master's in, I believe, like international relations or public relations, and also an MBA from the Wharton School. So this is actually a very popular dual degree option that people do take advantage of, and is something that is great for you to explore if that's your interest. And within Wharton, we also do have global immersion programs as well. So another way for you to explore internationally, where we are able to dive into a specific industry within a country and really dive deep on what that looks like. And I think people are actually normally able to travel to that country, but obviously we weren't able to this year. So that's another thing that we do here at Wharton that sort of highlights that global aspect of the MBA.
I just like to chime in.
Yeah.
Quick. Yeah. I think everything that Inga said is very true. And I want to just kind of add on, at UCR, diversity is our language. We're actually, we have the most diverse student body out of all of the University of California schools within the system. And within our MBA program alone, we have 25 countries being represented. So folks from China, India, Dubai, from the Emirates rather. So it's definitely, I think one of the brilliant things about, being able to, as Suraj asked, being able to leverage your network. I think particularly being sort of virtual has almost sort of helped facilitate it, being able to meet with people who you would have otherwise not had the chance to, or had many more limited opportunities to actually do so. And I think one of the most important things is to be able to reach out to these people. If you have them in your classrooms, if you happen to meet them at a either a recruitment event or some networking event, being able to make those connections. Oftentimes you'll find that we're a lot more similar than we think. And so be able to make those, very brief human connections with people, because that will go a long way in helping you start that foundation in building your network with these people. I think one of the most important things in terms of being able to build your network is don't always focus on what you can get out of that relationship necessarily, or what you can get out of it in the moment. It's really important to be able to sort of, treat your network like a garden. If you water it right now, it may not, reap you a harvest at the moment, but some many months down the road, or like some years down the road, you'll have a beautiful tree or like a beautiful harvest that will come back to you tenfold. And so I think it's really important to be able to make those connections with people, but also keep in contact with them. I think that LinkedIn is an absolutely fantastic resource for that, being able to maintain those connections with people. It's sort of it starts as like a virtual business card. If you're at some networking event where I want to stay connected with you. How can I do that? And then being able to maintain that connection with them by messaging them, or being able to interact with their posts. Being able to find those because very often on LinkedIn, for example, people will share posts about things which they're interested in, and you might find that all of a sudden you are both interested in venture capital, and so you can have a conversation about that and keep on growing your network. So I think that if you want to leverage your network, you really have to put in the work for it. But start with just being able to establish those connections with people, and then slowly find ways to, if you can, obviously, not just find ways to receive, but also to give, and share what you know and what you have with others, and that will come back to you tenfold.
All right. Thank you so much, David, for this information. And thank you so much, everyone. This session was wonderful, very informative session for me and everybody. Thank you so much, and all the best for your coming years and the future ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and good luck on everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you everyone.
everybody.
Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.